You know how it is. You can spend all of your energy preparing just the right things to say in an interview. But what often derails many strong candidates isn't what they do say. It's the habits, the behaviors, or the patterns that they bring into a conversation without even realizing it. I'm going to break down 3 things that I believe you should avoid in an interview because really they can erode confidence or clarity or really credibility with a hiring manager. And just as important, we're going to talk about how you might correct some of these. Before we dig in, my name is Doug, and I've helped thousands of people navigate through their job search. For help with your job search, check out the link in the description where you can find out how to get a copy of my Fast Track Job Search Bootcamp or my free 7-day job search Kickstart. I also offer some limited one-on-one coaching services. The links are down in the description. Let's dive in. So, what's the first thing that you should not do in an interview? Be very careful to not let your answers drift into long-winded tangents with little or no clear point. As someone who's interviewed many people, I know this firsthand. I don't believe that this is something that's intentional with most people. Rambling usually comes from something like nervous energy, or maybe over preparing scripted answers, or perhaps even really trying too hard to prove their value by oversharing or maybe going on and on. I do get it, but if the interviewer's eyes are glazing over or they have to interrupt you to have you kind of get to the point, it may be that you haven't just lost them, but they actually may be questioning if you can really articulate or be clear about your skills or your value, or even have solid communication skills. Believe it or not, concise thinking and communication can actually be perceived as somebody that's highly competent. You know what? And if they want you to expand on something, they're likely going to ask you. Think of it this way. Imagine that you're listening to someone teach you something on a video, kind of like this, and if that person is 3 to 4 minutes into the video and you're not even sure what their point is, you may just click out, right? Now think of that from the perspective of a hiring manager and how that may apply to interviewing. So what should you do? Remember when you were taught how to write a paper in school? You start with the main point, support that point in the upcoming paragraphs, and then wrap it all up by reminding them of your main point. In your interview, begin to answer their question by making the point that you want to get across very clearly, and then back it up with some context. Instead of starting with a story and eventually getting to your point, lead in with something like, the main responsibility I took on was leading a brand new team of 5 people, which led to this team eventually being a driving force in the company's rebranding, and we directly impacted revenues by X%. Then briefly list the challenges and the steps that you took, and then wrap it up by saying something like, I'm very proud of what was accomplished by this new team that I led. This gives the interviewer a mental anchor, and everything else that you say then supports that main idea. And the structure prevents spiraling tangents and showcases that you really can communicate with focus. Next, do your best to remain cool, calm, and confident. What do I mean? Obviously, in an interview, it's pretty common that you may be asked about career gaps, maybe pivots, job changes, or even some previous mistake that you made that comes up in conversation. I understand that responding to these questions, can feel really awkward and uncomfortable, but a defensive tone, even a subtle one, is going to raise some flags and maybe some concerns. Let me be clear, gaps, pivots, changes, they're not uncommon, and everyone has mistakes that they've made in their work history. But our reaction to questions about these reveals how we handle adversity, accountability, maybe self-awareness or coachability. Your tone, your body language, and your choice of words often matters more than the actual story. If we're defensive, they're going to assume that there's some sort of unresolved baggage or maybe resentment that we could bring into this new role. Sometimes we can dance around the issue and never really address it, and that can make an interviewer question our fit maybe even more. If we're talking about a previous role that we left, avoid emotionally charged words like toxic or unfair or micromanaged. Instead, try to use phrases like, you know what, it just wasn't the right long-term fit, or maybe the structure shifted, or I learned that I thrive most in, and then go on to describe the role that you're interviewing for. And when you do this, avoid drama. Be clear about what you learned and what you want moving forward. If a question comes up about maybe a previous mistake that you've made through some sort of a behavioral question, don't become anxious. Without going into great detail, briefly recognize your part of the mistake, how you handled it, what you learned, and tie it back to how you're even stronger today. Responding in this way shows that you're emotionally mature, that you can self-reflect, that you're forward thinking. This approach will show resilience and even that you're strategic in how you think about how you navigate through your job and your career. And finally, never undervalue your accomplishments or minimize what you've done. This is actually more common than we may think. It's not really being humble, it's hurting you in your interview. What can happen is a candidate worries about seeming arrogant, and ironically, they overcorrect and end up underselling themselves. But the problem with this is the hiring manager is looking for you to define your value, and you have to draw very clear lines about that. If you're afraid of sounding boastful, you deal with imposter syndrome, and I'll leave a link down in the description to a video that I did on that topic. Or maybe you struggle to articulate your value. You have to make a shift here. Your work won't speak for itself. You have to. You have to learn to communicate your achievements through business impact, not necessarily ego. And this keeps your tone confident but grounded. Don't draw back here. In a professional, respectful way, show that you have self-awareness to recognize your strengths and the confidence to communicate those professionally. In all three of these areas, when you speak with clarity, you own your story and demonstrate accountability. And when you articulate your value confidently, you position yourself as a mature, grounded, and highly credible candidate. While you're here, drop a comment down below and tell me about your experience. I'd love to hear how things are going for you. And if you found this helpful, maybe hit that like button and perhaps subscribe. And if you'd like a step-by-step system to help you navigate your job search, check out my Fast Track Job Search Bootcamp. I'll leave a link in the description. You can also find a link to my 7-day job search Kickstart. It's my free gift from me to you.